Trevor Engelson was never the type to chase fame or run to the press. He wasn't dramatic. After Meghan left him, he simply disappeared into a quiet life, remarried, built a family, and kept his name far away from headlines. No revenge, no bitterness, just peace. And maybe that's why what he finally said felt like thunder in a ballroom. Quiet at first, then shattering. According to someone close to Trevor, during his marriage to Meghan, something deeply private happened. A medical procedure, a hysterectomy. It made natural pregnancy impossible. It wasn't gossip, it was personal, sealed and buried, something only a husband could ever know. He assumed that secret would die in silence. But years later, when the world watched Meghan cradle her baby bump as a royal, glowing for the cameras, Trevor stayed still. He didn't speak, he didn't throw accusations. He watched as people dismissed every rumor, defended her, and called critics cruel. They said anyone who doubted her was heartless. Trevor kept his mouth shut, out of respect, not fear. But inside, something started to stir, not anger, but conscience. Because he had seen the real story before the fairy tale edit. He had lived it, and his truth changes everything. Back before Harry, before the royal titles and polished palaces, Meghan was a struggling actress in Hollywood. She'd take any part, commercials, background scenes, bit roles, whatever could inch her closer to fame. Trevor remembered one in particular, a low-budget soap where she was supposed to play a pregnant woman. The writers scrapped the plot, but Meghan didn't treat it like a throwaway. She studied that role. She practiced the walk, the stance, the way a woman adjusts her weight, how to cradle her belly tenderly, the subtle tilt of her hips. She even rehearsed facial expressions, the soft smile of a mother-to-be, the faint strain of carrying life, the gentle sigh of emotion. She took it seriously, maybe too seriously. So years later, when Trevor watched Meghan on royal walkabouts, glowing under the flash of cameras, hand resting on her stomach in the exact same practiced way, he froze. The movements, the rhythm, the poses, he'd seen them before. Every gesture mirrored that old acting role. People thought she looked radiant. Trevor thought she looked rehearsed. That was the moment he knew. What the world believed was instinct was something she'd mastered long ago. Her pregnancies weren't just personal milestones. They were performances, perfectly timed, perfectly framed. And it wasn't the first time she'd done it. Before Meghan ever wore a crown, Trevor says she already knew the art of emotional performance, the tears, the tremble, the vulnerability. According to people close to them, Meghan could switch emotions faster than a light flick. One moment calm, the next, her voice quivering, eyes glistening, tears falling like a movie close-up. Trevor used to sit there, watching, knowing it wasn't pain, it was strategy. Whenever the conversation turned against her, whenever things got uncomfortable, she'd cry. And just like that, the argument flipped. She became the victim, he became the villain. Years later, when she dabbed her eye in those televised interviews, even when there wasn't a tear to wipe, Trevor recognized it. The same old scene, rehearsed 1,000 times. He knew that with Meghan, everything, even emotion, could be staged. Trevor never went public, never sold his story, but quietly in small trusted circles, he warned that Meghan had private medical struggles far more serious than the public ever imagined, things that could make natural pregnancy impossible. For years, people brushed it off. It sounded too personal, too unbelievable. But then came Samantha Markle, Meghan's estranged sister, and suddenly Trevor's cryptic hints started fitting together like puzzle pieces. Samantha suggested something shocking, that Meghan had undergone a hysterectomy at just 28. If that were true, Trevor's silence wasn't bitterness, it was prophecy. And once that claim hit the air, everyone started noticing what they'd admired before. The odd timing, the strange photos. How one day she'd look barely pregnant, and just weeks later, heavily so. How her belly shape changed, sometimes high, sometimes low, sometimes oddly flat. Even the baby seemed to vanish quickly from public view. No consistent appearances, no clear medical details, no typical royal documentation that always accompanied royal births. Hospital names, official bulletins, photos of doctors. Nothing, just vague statements and perfect PR smiles. And whenever anyone questioned it, the topic turned taboo. But all breadcrumbs led to one shadow: surrogacy. Now, surrogacy isn't shameful, it's an act of love for families who need help. But inside the royal system, where bloodlines, birthrights, and ancient rules decide everything, surrogacy changes things. It shifts titles, succession, legitimacy. Combine that with the whispers about Meghan's surgery, and suddenly the royal fairy tale started looking like a carefully directed show. And then came the woman who shattered the illusion, a woman who introduced herself only as DL. She didn't tremble, didn't stutter, didn't hide. She spoke clearly. I carried Archie, and I carried Lilibet. DL said she wasn't just a helper or donor, she was the surrogate, the real one, the woman who felt the kicks, the morning sickness, the heartbeat. While Meghan played out the public version, DL lived the private one. She said she'd been promised protection, respect, privacy. Instead, she felt discarded. She said, treated like a vessel. Her voice didn't shake. It wasn't anger. It was certainty. She said she'd stayed silent for years, bound by a thick legal NDA, until one day she realized the paper couldn't silence her outside U.S. borders. That loophole became her freedom. What she brought next wasn't gossip. It was documentation, appointment logs, IVF schedules, implantation reports that aligned almost exactly with Meghan's public pregnancy announcements. She showed 2 ultrasound scans labeled with her own medical ID, one from 2019, another from 2020, perfectly matching the timeframes of Archie and Lilibet's pregnancies. She even revealed payment records, quiet wire transfers from companies linked to Meghan and Harry's financial managers. The payments came monthly, but inconsistently. And the non-disclosure agreement? It was brutal, a legal muzzle threatening ruin if she ever spoke. But DL spoke anyway. And suddenly, everything changed. Her story turned rumor into structure. She described 2 timelines, one public, one private. The public one, Meghan glowing in designer dresses, hand on belly, cameras flashing. The private one, DL walking through the side doors of a Beverly Hills fertility clinic, name replaced with numbers, her identity erased. She said the embryo transfer happened almost the same week Meghan's pregnancy was announced. She said her due dates matched the royal press calendar, down to the month. 2 pregnancies, 2 women, 1 truth hidden beneath polished PR. And when DL's evidence began to spread, people stopped rolling their eyes because her documents with real signatures, stamps, and timestamps turned whispers into alarm bells. She said Prince Harry wasn't just aware, he was involved. That he sat quietly in tinted windowed rooms during medical visits, signing forms, confirming steps, and ensuring everything aligned with Meghan's appearances. She said he looked me in the eye, calm, certain, not ashamed. If that's true, then this wasn't Meghan's secret alone. It was theirs. Insiders claim that ever since, Harry's behavior has shifted, cutting people off, snapping at staff, living with paranoia. Not fear of danger, fear of exposure, because the one thing privacy was meant to protect has now become the thing that could destroy everything. And inside the palace, panic. This wasn't just scandal, it was constitutional chaos. Because under royal law, a child must be born of the mother's body to be automatically included in the line of succession. If surrogacy is used, it must be declared publicly, legally, and transparently. That never happened. Archie and Lilibet received titles and positions as heirs. But if DL's claim is true, and no formal surrogacy was declared, the issue goes beyond personal. It becomes royal fraud. Behind closed doors, whispers grew sharper. Did palace officials know? Were records edited? Did anyone sign off on a cover-up? And if so, how could they undo it now, after the world had already accepted the fairy tale? As one former royal aide allegedly said, the danger isn't the surrogacy. The danger is the deception. Meanwhile, DL didn't fade away. She gathered her team, lawyers, journalists, strategists. She said there were more records, more correspondence, more names. Networks began calling. She even proposed one final act, a live public DNA test. If I'm lying, the world will know in minutes. But if I'm not, they'll have to explain everything. That single sentence reportedly froze Meghan's PR machine because there's no spin, no interview, no statement that can outtalk DNA. If DL stood beside the royal children and science backed her claim, the monarchy wouldn't just face embarrassment, it would face collapse. And so, silence reigns. Meghan, Harry, the palace, all quiet. But it's the kind of quiet that buzzes with fear, the kind before lightning strikes. Because now, the pieces all fit. Trevor's quiet warnings, Samantha's old accusations, DL's records, the ultrasounds, the contracts, the money trail, the NDAs. the constitutional panic, the looming DNA test that could blow open centuries of royal tradition. This isn't gossip anymore. It's the calm before the explosion. If DL steps onto that stage, if she presents the evidence and the results match, the royal fairy tale won't fade, it'll shatter. Because then the next chapter won't belong to Meghan or Harry or the palace. It will belong to truth itself. And that truth, relentless and roaring, is already knocking. This isn't the end. It's the moment before the lightning hits. And when it does, everything, absolutely everything, will change. The walls of Buckingham are quiet tonight, but not the kind of quiet that comes with peace. It's the heavy, watching kind. Behind those guarded gates, phones buzz, lawyers whisper, and everyone prays that tomorrow's headlines don't turn the monarchy into a battlefield, because DL's name has started echoing in the places it was never meant to reach.